The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it. We can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Well, I'm going to talk about a teaching of Bodhidharma today because we just celebrated his festival. Well, we all know about, most of us know about Bodhidharma, how he went from India to China to propagate the Dharma, how he met Emperor Wu, and their conversation did not go well. Emperor Wu and his courtiers had all been building pagodas and reciting scripts and doing all kinds of stuff for years to make merit. And Emperor Wu asks Bodhidharma, what merit do we get from this? And Bodhidharma says, none whatsoever. The emperor didn't care for this and said, who are you? And Bodhidharma says, I don't know. That didn't go well either. So Bodhidharma had to leave really quickly, crossed the Yangtze River and went to the north and sat in a meditation place sat facing the wall for 9 years, they said. So he never had a lot of disciples. You can maybe understand why, because for one thing, he was in a foreign country. He'd just arrived in not that long before, I think, when he met the emperor, and he didn't, but actually, I think he was right on the money, but the emperor didn't get it. And Bodhidharma didn't leave a great many writings. The litany we recited this morning is most of one of them, actually, not the whole thing, because it's quite long, but that's one of them. And in this little book, Bodhidharma's teaching of Bodhidharma, translated by Red Pine, aka Bill Porter. It's actually nice. And then that little thing we recited today is in here. It's one of his few teachings that are recorded. But some people say they may not all have been written by Bodhidharma after all that. But there's one teaching that nobody seems to doubt, and that is his outline of practice. Very short, very succinct, and really helpful. So I'm going to talk about that. He says, many roads lead to the path, but basically there are only two, reason and practice. To enter by reason means to realize the essence through instruction, realizing the truth through instruction, and to believe that all living things share the same nature, which isn't apparent because they're shrouded by sensation and delusion, their same true nature. Well, reason doesn't mean some intellectual understanding. It means realizing the truth, as he says, through instruction, to being taught about it, because it helps if you have some teaching. And some people get it right away. And then to believe, to trust, and have faith that all beings have the same true nature, Buddha nature. And to just accept that. Okay, great. Sit down, look at a wall, and open up to the truth very quickly. Some people are like this. Maybe because they've inherited many lives of training in Buddhism, who knows? But some people seem to get it right away. Not many people seem to be like this. Most of us are the other kind. We need to follow the way of practice. And Bodhidharma talks a lot more about the way of practice than it does about the first way, because people get it right away. You don't need to talk about it a whole lot. Most of us have to follow the way of practice, and it's not always easy. We don't just sit and look at a wall and everything falls into place right away. No, we struggle. We have horrible trouble sometimes. He says there are 4 basic practices: suffering injustice, adapting to conditions, seeking nothing, and practicing the Dharma. So we'll go through these. All very simple but profound. Suffering injustice, he says. When those who search for the path encounter adversity, they should think to themselves, in countless ages gone by, I have turned from the essential to the trivial, and wandered through all manner of existence, often angry without cause, and guilty of numberless transgressions. Now, though I do no wrong, am punished by my past. Neither gods nor men can foresee when an evil deed will bear its fruit. I accept it with an open heart and without complaint of injustice. Oh, I long to be thus. We all know what it's like to have something happen that seems to be unfair. We think somebody's treated us unfairly, misjudging us, or maybe there's some misfortune that's happened to us. And we think, why did this happen to me? I've been a good person. Why am I having this horrible trouble? But if you consider that maybe there's some karmic thing from our past that's coming due, we don't have to feel resentful about it and think, this is not fair, it shouldn't be happening to me. I'm getting somebody else's comeuppance. To say, I accept it with an open heart and without complaint of injustice. To accept everything that comes our way with an open heart, whether we like it or not, and not to be resentful about it. And this doesn't mean you have to just sit and accept or take things that aren't right, that are clearly wrong, and not try just to do something about them. We can try to do something about things. We don't have to just sit there and say, oh, well, sometimes we need to do something. But we don't have to nourish anger and resentment about the things that happen. It's a suffering. We don't know the reasons for everything that happens, to us or to anybody else. But if we can accept things with an open heart, it helps us a lot. Accept it with an open heart. Okay, this is happening, I don't know why, but I don't have to think life is unfair. Because actually, karma works itself out, and we don't always know what's happening, don't know how karma we've inherited. It may seem unfair, we've accepted, we've been dealt a large load of stuff we'd rather not have, a lot of anger or greed or grief or whatever. But still, we're trying to help the general karmic load of humanity. If we're not a little me going from life to life, which Buddhism, you're not a little me going from life to life. There's karma and consciousness, and we inherit karma. Maybe it seems unfair, but it's what we have, and it's what we need to help us work through, find the truth. So if we don't know the reasons for everything that happens, which we don't, if we can accept things with an open heart, it helps us a lot. And as he says, with such understanding, you're in harmony with reason, with knowing the truth of things as they are. And by suffering injustice, you enter the path. To accept things that are difficult helps us to train with a peaceful heart and not be constantly kicking against the pricks and thinking, this isn't fair, So this brings us to Bodhidharma's second basic practice, adapting to conditions. He says, as mortals, we're ruled by conditions, not by ourselves. We're not in charge. All the suffering and joy we experience depend on conditions. If we should be blessed by some great reward, such as fame or fortune, it's the fruit of a seed planted by us in the past. When conditions change, it ends. Why delight in its existence? Why get all excited about things that happen? Because everything comes and goes. Everything is transient, actually. And if you can sit still in the midst of conditions, it helps us a lot. The 8 winds, gain and loss, fame and disgrace, praise and blame, elation and sorrow. I'm always talking about them. They're always with us. They constantly arise in our life. There's always something going on. You're happy, it passes, something horrible happens. Or you're miserable, something nice happens. But if you get blown about by those winds all the time, you can't find peace. Then he says, but while success and failure depend on conditions, the mind neither waxes nor wanes. We can sit still in the midst of all that. Those who remain unmoved by the wind of joy silently follow the path. To sit still in the midst of all the conditions that come up and accept them. And this is how we adapt to conditions, to accept them, to sit still in the midst of them. Well, it's interesting that he says the wind of joy. He doesn't say the wind of sorrow or disgrace. It's the wind of joy, because When things are hard, we're more inclined to turn to the Dharma, to turn to the precepts, to turn to something that'll help us when things are difficult. And when everything's going well, or some nice thing happens, we can get pulled away from that and just get distracted and just, fall into all the ups and downs of life. Enjoy the newest thing, whatever it might be. But no matter whether we experience joy or sorrow, gain or loss or whatever, if our mind neither waxes nor wanes, if we can remain still in the midst of conditions, we're silently following the path. I like that. We're silently following the path. It may not look like much, it doesn't make a lot of noise, but we're following the path, just quietly getting on with our training in the midst of all the conditions that come our way. And people may not see that we're just sitting still in the midst of all conditions because we're not making a lot of racket, but we're silently following the path. Lovely. Bodhidharma's third practice, seeking nothing. People of this world are deluded. They're always longing for something, always, in a word, seeking. But the wise wake up. They choose reason over custom. Custom means our habitual clinging to things, wanting this and not wanting that. Custom of our just habits of mind, always wanting something. We're always wanting something, and this is the cause of suffering. But to choose reason, i.e. seeing things as they truly are, to choose that over longing for things, wanting this, not wanting that. He says, they fix their minds on the sublime and let their bodies change with the seasons. Adapting to conditions, our bodies change all the time. If we were getting old, we know this, everything changes. And it's good that everything changes. When you're little, you grow up, get old, and so forth. All phenomena are empty, as he says. Everything is transient. All phenomena are empty. They contain nothing worth desiring. Calamity forever alternates with prosperity. The six winds of change again. Calamity, prosperity, good and bad, gain and loss, fame and disgrace, and all that. Constantly changing. So there's nothing to hold on to, nothing worth longing for, because it's going to go. It's all transient. It's not the reality. And he says, to dwell in the three realms is to dwell in a burning house. The three realms are this world we see, plus all the heavenly realms and realms of meditation and so forth. All the things that we can experience in this present life, or however it is, they're all subject to change. Even in the wonderful realms of the devas and the realms of meditation, is still dwelling in a burning house. What we really need to do, is to sit still in the midst of all that and go beyond these three realms, the three worlds, the six realms of existence, all the things that we can experience. They're all just living in a burning house. This is a simile in the Lotus Sutra of it's like we're living in a burning house and we don't realize the house is burning. We have to be dragged out by the Buddha so that we can find something more satisfactory than this burning house, which is suffering. So to dwell in the three realms is to dwell in a burning house. To have a body is to suffer. Does anyone with a body know peace? Good question. Those who understand this detach themselves from all that exists and stop imagining or seeking anything. The sutras say, to seek is to suffer. To want something is to suffer. To seek nothing is bliss. When you seek nothing, you're on the path. This is what the Buddha said. The cause of suffering is wanting something. Ajahn Chah says, you let go a little, you get a little peace. Let go a lot, you get a lot of peace. Let go completely, you get complete peace. This is, of all the things he ever said, this is the thing I quote most because it's really good. To let go sounds so easy. Not that, It's not easy, but it's how we find peace. So, the fourth practice, practicing the Dharma. The Dharma is the truth that all natures are pure. By this truth, all appearances are empty. Defilement and attachment, subject and object, don't exist. Now, we may not see this for ourselves now, but we can train in the faith that it is the case, it is so. All these things are, appearances are empty. All these things that we see and deal with, we still have to do our best with them. We don't just say, oh, everything's empty, so I'll just do what I want. We do our best to keep to the precepts, to train in the way, but we don't have to cling on to them as a great thing. This is why we try to let go of clinging on to things, seeking nothing, adapting to conditions and so forth, because in fact it's not the reality. There's something beyond all this that we can find for ourselves. Something beyond what we can see and know. This world of appearances is not all that there is. And whether we see it or not, we can trust that and have faith in that. With this whole section of practicing the Dharma, it's exactly what we find in the Diamond Sutra. It's exactly this. He says, the sutras say, the Dharma includes no being because it's free from the impurity of being. And the Dharma includes no self because it's free from the impurity of self. Those wise enough to believe and understand this truth are bound to practice according to the Dharma. And even if we don't understand it yet, we can practice this way anyway, with faith in it, There is no real self to be found anywhere. So we don't have to cling on to it and try and make it happy. And since that which is real includes nothing worth begrudging, they give their body, life and property in charity without regret, without the vanity of giver, gift or recipient, and without bias or attachment. And to eliminate impurity, they teach others, but without becoming attached to form. Thus, through their own practice, they're able to help others and glorify the way of enlightenment. And as with charity, they also practice the other virtues, the virtues of the 6 paramitas: giving, the precepts, patience, effort, meditation, and wisdom. We try to practice all these at once. We start with the easiest one is charity, giving, because you can always give something to somebody. And it gets more complicated. Keeping to the precepts, we can do that. Patience, okay. Effort, we do our best. Meditation, we try. Wisdom comes to us sometimes. And as we train, it comes to us more. But we practice them all at once. And don't think you have no wisdom just because you haven't become supremely enlightened and you haven't perfected this meditation thing yet. Or the effort, well, I'm getting old, it's a bit hard. Don't worry, we can still have access to wisdom. We can still meditate. We can still practice all these paramitas. We can still practice as though we knew for ourselves that there's nothing to hold on to, there's nothing worth getting all upset about, there's nothing worth clinging to. And yet, we live our life as fully and wholeheartedly as we can. We don't say, oh, well, nothing matters, I'm just going to kick back and, drink whiskey or whatever. It's the what we do is important. What we do matters. Even though this world is impermanent, what we do matters. What we say matters. What we think matters. So we try not to nourish anger and hatred and greed and delusion and so forth. We try to let them come and go. They come into our mind. Our mind is not perfect, and we let them go. We don't try not to give in to them too much and create suffering. Then he says, while practicing the 6 virtues, the paramitas, to eliminate delusion, they practice nothing at all, because things are fundamentally not the reality. But not because they aren't there. The Buddha said, to say nothing exists, the self exists, is wrong. To say the self doesn't exist is wrong. It's the wrong question. So you think, okay, what do we do? Just to sit still in the midst of it all and to let it clarify, So while practicing the six virtues to eliminate delusion, they practice nothing at all. This is what is meant by practicing the Dharma. Very profound, hard to understand, and yet somehow extremely simple. Just that we don't understand it yet doesn't mean it's complicated, doesn't mean we have to be brilliant or have some deep, intellectual understanding. Because he says that the way through reason doesn't mean intellectual understanding, it means seeing clearly. And people do see clearly. We can see clearly. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're completely deluded, sometimes we get a little glimpse of what is what. And we just take it all and accept it all, but not to hold on to any of it, just to do our best. So this whole outline of practice is so short, so simple, and so profound that it takes a whole lifetime to practice it and embody it as best we can. And that's Bodhidharma's teaching for us today. Thank you.